Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 28 Jan. The news items that we have picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 13. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, no proof of sabotage. Wagon faults may have derailed trains, says panel. So this is regarding the November 2016 derailment of the Indore-Rajendra Nagar Express. So on this, a preliminary investigation report has been submitted by Commission of Railway Safety. We have discussed this Commission of Railway Safety, which is under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. So this is under the Ministry of Civil Aviation, not under Ministry of Railways. So this has been there in place since pre-independence times, and this Commission of Railway Safety was kept outside the Ministry of Railways to ensure that it does an independent investigation and inquiry in such incidences. So it gives its reports on railway safety as such. So it was earlier under Ministry of Post also. Presently it's under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. So this body says that there is no proof of sabotage. So sabotage means deliberately causing damage as such. So there is no deliberate damage which has been caused by anyone, but it is the carriage and wagon defects which are the prime reasons for the accident. So it has also said that there are overaged coaches which are being run by the railways. So these coaches should have been changed long ago, but they have not been changed yet. And the carriage and wagon are also defective. The wheel alignment, which it has clearly pointed out that the wheels of the S1 and S2 coaches, the wheel gauge had a huge variation. So this was the prime cause for the derailment. So this report has been submitted. Already you should know Ministry of Railways has had highlighted that there are at least 6 incidents of train derailments in which there are probabilities of terrorists being involved. So even the Bihar police has under custody some people who are associated with ISI, and they claim that such sabotages had been planned. So that is why this angle is also being investigated into by NIA, National Investigation Agency. So on this request from Ministry of Railways to the Ministry of Home Affairs, NIA has been charged with investigating into the terrorist angle in these incidents as well. The next news item is government hospitals to display rules for biomedical waste management. So this is the biomedical waste management rules of 2016. So the awareness generation for them is essential. That is why the health ministry has given these guidelines. Biomedical waste basically means waste generated in the hospitals like animal or humans anatomical waste. So anatomical means related to the human body. So any part, any such waste. Treatment apparatus which is used like needles, syringes and other such materials. So they are called biomedical waste. So there's a need for segregating them and disposing them of accordingly. So these provisions were earlier applicable to hospitals as such and larger units, but now they have been made applicable even to makeshift camps, vaccination camps and such, or blood donation camps and so on too. So that's why the ambit of these rules have been expanded. So this is the biomedical waste management rules. The details have been provided here, but just to understand the difference between the rules which were there earlier and as they are now, a differentiation table can be just discussed. So these were the rules, 1998 rules which were applicable till date, and these are the 2016 rules which have been applicable since 2016 onwards. So this is, you can see, occupiers with more than 1000 beds required to obtain authorization under the biomedical waste management rules. Now every occupier generating biomedical waste, including health camps, Ayush centers, everybody has to obtain authorization as such that they are generating biomedical waste. Then operator duties were absent. Now duties of operators have also been listed out in the biomedical waste management rules. Earlier biomedical waste was divided into 10 categories. Now they are divided into 4 categories. So simplification here has taken place from adequate disposal as well. The earlier rules were restricted to healthcare establishments with more than 1000 beds only. Now it is for all healthcare establishments. A format for annual report and some changes in the schedule have also been done. The next news item is Kofi Annan praises Mohalla clinics. So this is regarding the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, who has praised the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi So Delhi government has come up with these Mohalla clinics initiative. So these Mohalla clinics are units which provide patients with free tests, medicines, and also doctor consultation. So everything is provided for free. So around 100 such Mohalla clinics, 108 such Mohalla clinics have been established. There are plans to construct 1,000 more such Mohalla clinics, and the international body, the elders, which is also headed by Mr. Kofi Annan. So as a representative, he had come to Delhi and he has praised this initiative. He says this is consistent with the universal health coverage goals of World Health Organization too. So this has been highlighted. He says that if this is fully implemented in Delhi as the plan, then this can act as a model for all other states to replicate to ensure universal healthcare coverage. So this is the Mohalla clinics. So many of them are in temporary makeshift, semi-permanent structures as such too, which have been established, and many people have already availed facilities under this. The next news item is farmers' deaths a human rights issue, Supreme Court. So this is a public interest litigation which has been filed by an NGO representing farmers from Gujarat. So it wanted the Supreme Court intervention in the case of farmer suicides in Gujarat, but the Supreme Court bench has widened the scope of this litigation and has involved all the states, the center and the RBI in the matter. So to get in an effort to get a holistic picture of the plight of the farmers all over India. So we see that crop failure, natural calamities result in these farmers who are debt ridden, who are stuck in the vicious cycle of debt, finally take their lives. So this is regarding farmers' suicide. So the Supreme Court bench is asking all the states and the center to explain whether there is a lifeline for the farmers, like a comprehensive insurance plan in place, so that this vicious circle of loss and suffering of the farmers can be ended. So that is the question put forth by the Supreme Court in this matter. So of course, we are going to hear more on this too. This is the news. It has made a statement saying that the death of farmers due to crop losses is a human rights issue. So this is a statement which may come up as a question in mains as well. So this is important. In the particular case was regarding 692 farmers who had committed suicide in Gujarat between 2003 to 2012. So they are suffering because of the bank loans which have failed to pay off. So those were the problems because of which generally farmers commit suicide, natural calamities because of which the crops fail. Then the next news item is Chhattisgarh to track teacher attendance using tablet PCs. So Ministry of Human Resource Development, that is HRD ministry, is mainly the education ministry. So this HRD ministry has initiated a pilot project to use technology to monitor the quality of schooling in the country. So as a part of this initiative, all the schools across Chhattisgarh will be supplied with tablet computers. So these tablet computers can be used by teachers to record details like daily attendance, midday meals details. So our central server would store all these details. So there will be better and regular assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of schools. So this pilot project has been initiated. If this works efficiently, then this will be replicated all across the country and the education quality can be monitored and improvised accordingly. The next news item is no one law on cattle slaughter, Supreme Court. So a petition had been filed before the Supreme Court by this Delhi resident who asked that the Supreme Court should direct all the states to frame a uniform policy banning cattle slaughter. Because it says that in some states cattle slaughter is banned, like Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh ban cattle slaughter, basically cow slaughter, and other states like Kerala there is no ban on cow slaughter. So here there is a huge amount of illegal interstate transportation and trade in cattle taking place. So that is why to avoid this, it is asking that the Supreme Court should direct all the centers to have a uniform policy. All should ban cattle slaughter. But the Supreme Court has declined to entertain this petition. So this is also a case of judicial restraint. Means it is the prerogative of the states to decide their policies. So prohibition of cow slaughter is actually part of the directive principles of state policy. So these directive principles of state policy in the constitution are list of functions or principles which the states should inculcate in their policies. So these are directives given to the states. States here in constitution means all government at any level, center, state, everything. So these are directions given to be inculcated in the policies, but not justiciable, not binding. So as the states find it comfortable for them, considering all the factors, financial, political, social, they may put them into effect. So this is a case of clear judicial restraint. The next news item is Karnataka's taxi policy runs counter to center guidelines. So Karnataka's transport department has issued notices to these taxis which share rides. So shared rides by taxis are actually the apps which we see. So share a ride is quite convenient here because you clearly know the real-time location of the passengers or probable customers, and you can have shared rides as well. But then they said that this the notice is asking why this should not be declared illegal, because this is violating the operating principle of the taxi cabs. So it says the permits which are given for taxi cabs is for point-to-point rides. So this is not for shared rides. But then this approach of the Karnataka's transport department is completely running counter to the Union Ministry of Road Transport and Highway Committee report, which was recently accepted by the ministry as well. This was taxi policy guidelines to promote urban mobility. So it says that in this policy, it was said that in order to provide cheaper travel solutions and to reduce the number of cars on the roads, sharing of seats is a huge initiative which can be taken by the aggregator-based taxis, these app-based taxis which use the algorithm to have passengers use their services. So this with the express consent of the passengers. If passengers are agreeing to sharing a ride, then it should be encouraged. But then here this is running counter to that principle which has recently been accepted. So it has not been mandated yet. So internationally too, there are various programs and various reports which show the benefits, social benefits of these shared urban mobility. Means urban transportation means shared. So it's called combined mobility to SCOMO. So this combined mobility, it says that using this is an international association of public transport. It says that the backbone of these public sector transportation should be strengthened. So there should be regulatory changes made also in the policies so that these shared taxis, shared bikes, bicycles, carpooling, ride sharing should be encouraged. So this is been recommended as well by this international organization too. And another one it says is use real-time passenger information so that apps created, they can link the buses, trains and shared taxis. So just as real-time passenger information is available, this can easily be put into effect too. So combined mobility has to be encouraged. The next news item is Navy rejects Tejas, begins global search. So this is regarding the light combat aircraft Tejas, which Navy had declared earlier as well that Tejas cannot be inducted into its forces because what it requires right now is carrier-based multi-role fighter aircrafts. Carrier-based means there are aircraft carriers. So these are large ships which can carry aircrafts, and aircrafts can take off and land on them. So for that, the fighter aircrafts which are required have to have strong engines, and this is a single engine aircraft. So the Navy says that this Tejas is not a carrier based aircraft, so it does not fulfill its requirement. So it says that we cannot induct Tejas. It says that we have a requirement of 57 multi-role carrier-borne fighter aircrafts. So for this, a request for information also has been put forth, and the Navy is looking into various proposals for this too. So this presently what we have are MiG-29K twin engine fighters which are carried by these aircraft carrier. Presently it is INS Vikramaditya. So MiG-29K are Russian made, but then there are issues with this MiG-29 fighter carriers in the history, because of which we do not want to include more of these MiG-29K fighters in our services, but we are looking for other alternatives. Even the first indigenous aircraft carrier which we will soon induct into services is ISC Vikrant. So INS Vikramaditya, ISC Vikrant are the aircraft carriers which Navy possesses, and we want these carrier-borne fighters now. So apart from MiG-29K, the others which have been shortlisted are Boeing's F-18 Super Hornet, Dassault Rafale. Dassault Rafale has also been recently also inducted in the Indian Air Force. So Indian Navy is also looking for this. So 36 have already been contracted. We had seen this was in news. We'll look into that detail too. So this Prime Minister Narendra Modi had come up with an initiative that at least the 36 can be directly procured from the Dassault as such, Rafale fighter aircraft, so that the present needs of the Indian Air Force can be fulfilled. Another option is also F-35 fifth generation aircrafts of US. So looking at this little history of these aircrafts too. So this is regarding Tejas as well. So the light combat aircraft project had initiated in 1983. So this was originally to replace the MiG-21 fighters. But then the first prototype came only in Jan 2001. In 2013, it got initial operational clearance and final operation clearance came in 2015. So that is why it has been delayed to a huge extent. The engine of this Tejas aircraft, Kaveri engine, suffered, because of which even now the US based engine has been used in these Tejas fighter aircrafts. So because of this huge delay, the requirements have also changed, and presently Navy has also rejected from inducting Tejas into its services. So IF has inducted it, plus the Tejas Mark II, which will be a stronger engine, which will be developed, more powerful engine Tejas, which would be developed. That project will begin from 2021. So this is the light combat aircraft. So even MMRCA, medium multi-role combat aircraft, for which we had initiated tenders, here also it was said that Tejas can't substitute this requirement, because we need a combat aircraft which is much more stronger, for which the other aircrafts like Rafale, Sukhoi 30 MK are much more suitable than Tejas. So Rafale, which has finally been inducted under this MMRCA, is having 3 times the range and weapon load carrying capacity compared to Tejas. So this is critical for us to take on countries like China presently. So this is regarding Tejas, and this is a comparison of all the contenders in the tender for medium multi-role combat aircraft which had been initiated. You can see Dassault Rafale, one of them, even Boeing Super Hornet, which even the Navy is looking for at right now. So the Rafale and Super Hornet are the 2 major contenders for the Navy's contract. Right. Then finally this tender had been floated in 2007 for MMRCA. In 2011, the American Super Hornet and even the Swedish Gripen had been evicted from the list because of the extensive field trials that they were not found suitable. Even Russian MiG-35 was out of the race. Finally, in 2012, French Rafale was chosen. The 2 left were French Rafale and Eurofighter Typhoon. So then there was commercial bids which were opened, and finally it was Rafale which won the bid. So this finally there was a proposal for manufacturing 108 MMRCS. So the Dassault Rafale would be providing us with these 108 fighters, but then they had to be manufactured by HAL in India. So there was a Make in India program associated with it. So this issue with this Make in India part of it, and the Dassault Rafale also later hiked the prices. So this created issues because of which the contract could not be completed. So as a way out, it was decided, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that at least 36 fighters could be initially inducted, direct purchases, and then later Make in India can be brought in for the remaining aircrafts which will be manufactured in India. So this was the recent news as well. So this is again regarding the same, that we needed MMRCA was inducted because we needed new fighters. So the obsolete MiG-21s and MiG-27s which we had to be replaced by fresh aircrafts, and these are the Dassault Rafale which are going to take their place. So this is there regarding the Tejas. Also the indigenous Tejas light combat aircraft was highly delayed. Even Tejas Mark II is still on the drawing boards. So that is why Tejas could not be part of this race as well. So this is regarding MMRCA project and the strategic decision which was recently taken of 36 Rafales brought through a government to government deal. This is that. So here you can see. It's called a very expensive acquisition too, the Dassault Rafale. So it will further add to the logistics challenge for the Air Force because it operates different kinds of aircraft. So we have Russian-made fighters, we have NATO fighters, and now we have this European. Dassault Rafale is from French. So these French fighters will also be inducted. So this is there. Then Rafale is also appreciated for the BVR, Beyond Visual Range Air-to-Air Missile, which it has. This is called Meteor. So Meteor Air-to-Air Missile, which it as part of it, it has a range in excess of 150 kilometers. So this is an added advantage of the Dassault Rafale. The next news item is Center says GAR effective April 1. Industry demurs. So this GAR is General Anti-Avoidance Rules. So anti-avoidance, avoidance here is of tax avoidance. So there's something called tax evasion and something called tax avoidance. Tax evasion means you are not paying the taxes which you are entitled to pay. So it's a crime, tax evasion. But what is tax avoidance? It's not illegal. Tax avoidance means you are making arrangements in such a way that you don't have to pay taxes. So you are avoiding paying taxes. So that is not illegal. So you cannot be prosecuted under any law. So but these are loopholes. Actually, you should be paying taxes, but you are using some strategies, some loopholes which are ensuring that you don't pay taxes. So eventually, you are avoiding taxes. So this is undertaken by huge multinational companies, corporates as such. So this results in a huge loss to the government. So it's losses in crores also. So to ensure that these losses do not take place, what countries are doing is they come up with these rules. India has also finalized these rules called General Anti-Avoidance Rules. So they have been delayed quite often to be implemented in India, but finally now it has been decided. It was announced in Budget 2016 that they will come into effect from 1st April 2017, and government has reiterated its stand that GAR will be effective from 1st April 2017 onwards. There are some clarity which was required about how GAR would be implemented. So those clarifications on these rules have also been provided by the government presently. So these avoidance generally has taken place because of usage of some provisions in the double taxation avoidance agreements with various countries which India has. So some countries are called tax havens, like Mauritius. It's a single largest source of FDI. For a long time, it was the single largest source of FDI in India. Cyprus, which is again a tax haven. Singapore also has huge FDI coming into India. So we have presently also modified a double taxation avoidance agreements with these countries. So what is this double taxation avoidance agreement? So there is a company, an entity, a person who is to be taxed in one financial year. So in India, the case is that if the person is there for more than 6 months within India, then he is to be taxed. But then various countries will have their own laws of when a person would be taxed in the country in which he resides or in the country where he may be presently residing or is a citizen. So like for Indian citizens, this is basically for NRIs. So NRIs, if they stay for 6 months or longer, more than 6 months in any other country, then they are not liable to pay taxes in India. So this NRI definition is also under Income Tax Act, and is this for this purpose of whether they would be taxed or they will be considered as non-resident Indians. So such rules which will be there in various countries, they have to be aligned, because it may also happen that a person falls under the ambit of paying taxes in his country also plus in the country where he is working also, then he'll be doubly taxed. So to avoid this, double taxation avoidance agreements are finalized. But then these are sometimes misused as well. So to ensure that that does not take place, we are modifying these double taxation avoidance agreements we already have with many countries as well. So the clarifications which have presently been given are on foreign portfolio investments, FPIs, that is in the stock market majorly, limitation of benefits. So these limitation of benefits clauses are there with various countries in the double taxation avoidance agreements. So these limitation of benefits provisions have also already been modified with India and Singapore DTA and even in India Mauritius DTAA. So they are presently available, means the limitation of benefits would be there, means benefits which were being accrued will now be available only for the next 2 years. So these modifications have taken place recently in 2016 only. So for the next 2 years, the taxation rate would be at 50%. Earlier there was no tax, so now there's taxes would be applicable, but only 50% of the tax rate should be paid. So this is the limitation of benefit clause. So in the present rules, it has been clarified that the limitation of benefits clause would be if it is sufficiently addressing tax avoidance, then it would be applicable. No fresh GAR rules would come into effect then. So that is there, that LOB clauses is relevant. So here it says, so it has been clarified that if LOB clause sufficiently addresses tax avoidance, then GAR will not apply. And the third is also with respect to court rulings. So if courts have already given their rulings on a particular matter, there are also these bodies called authority for advance rulings. So if they have allowed for a particular arrangement has been permitted, then GAR would not apply in those cases also. So these clarifications have come in up to presently. It says that if at the time of sanctioning an agreement, the court has explicitly and adequately considered the tax implications, then GAR will not apply in such arrangements as well. So this is GAR, General Anti-Avoidance Rules. So this GAR was first proposed in 2009 under the Direct Tax Code, and in 2012 it was announced in the budget also, the budget which was put forth by then Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee. So this was the initiation of GAR. It has been delayed quite often. At that time also it had become controversial because it had some provisions which were applicable from retrospective effect. So retrospective effect means applicable to also deals which have taken place before the GAR is put into effect. So if it is coming into effect say in 2012 also, so it would be applicable to deals before that too. So there also the government will demand that you had avoided taxes, now pay the taxes. So that was the controversial aspect. So it has been delayed for long. Now in budget 2015, it was also announced by present Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, and it was said in 2 years it would be put into effect. So that is 1st April 2017. So the treaties which we have modified with various countries like India-Mauritius treaty was amended in May 2016. So we have included a limitation of benefit clause 2, which we just discussed, that the taxation would be reduced for the present benefits which have been provided to. This taxation would start applying, but at a reduced rate, 50% reduced rate for the first 2 years. So gradually it will shift to full taxation too. So this is regarding that. So there is something called round tripping. So round tripping means money is invested in another country outside India, and from there then it comes back into India. So that transaction takes place because if that deal takes place in India, then there's a huge amount of tax which has to be paid. So there's something called capital gains tax. So capital gains tax means a company is selling off its capital as such, stocks, bonds, property. Then it has to pay a tax on that capital gains, means at what rate it has brought and at what rate it is selling. There's a difference. If there's a profit there, so that taxation has to be paid on that. So this capital gains tax is not there in some countries. Like Mauritius, there is no capital gains tax. So if this transaction takes place outside, means this money is sent abroad, and then from there transaction takes place, then comes into India. So that is Indian money only, but it has round tripped, come back to India through a route avoiding capital gains tax. So this round tripping which takes place has to be stopped. So that is why changes are being proposed. So this is there. Capital gains tax will be levied on investments routed from Mauritius into Indian stock markets from next year. Even it says that there will be a transition phase, as we discussed, that tax will be levied at half rate. So this is the limitation of benefit clause. So India levies a 15% short-term capital gains tax on shares sold after a holding period of less than a year. So this is the capital gains tax which India has, but there is no capital gains tax in Mauritius. Also it says grandfathering of investment is allowed. That means no capital gains on investments made before 2017 would be considered. So old provisions are fine. Then this is the Mauritius treaty. So this was no capital gains tax, no withholding tax. So withholding tax means a tax which has to be withheld by the employer. So employee is not paid that amount, but that tax is withheld to be paid to the country from where this employee is working. So that money would go, say for example in Mauritius, if a person is working, or some other country, because Mauritius there was no withholding tax too. So this was also part of the double taxation avoidance agreement. So this meant that if the person is Indian say is working in Mauritius, so then there will be no withholding tax applicable to that. The employer has to withhold some tax which has to go directly from the government to the government, from the employer to the government in India. So that withholding tax is generally paid in this manner. So these are the changes which are proposed and have taken place too. So this is India-Cyprus Treaty, which has also been amended on the same lines after Mauritius Treaty has been amended. So this is in 6 months, December 2016. So here also now capital gains would be applicable, even profits on investments as such, capital gains which are made are also to be paid. So Cyprus is also a major FDI investor in India. It's the 8th biggest FDI investor. So many investments are routed through Cyprus too. So here also DTAA, Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, has been modified. Another amendment in same December 2016 was also with Singapore. So here Singapore DTA has also been amended. So this will also ensure that this curbs on that the capital gains tax which is exempted. So this will also again be modified here too. So this will be phased out in 2 years. Another concern with respect to GAR is regarding P notes. So what are P notes? P notes are participatory notes, are financial instruments used by foreign investors to invest in India. So these foreign investors are investing in the Indian securities in India. So these securities are actually invested in not directly by them, but they invest through a foreign institutional investor. So FII. So this FII is registered with SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India. But these foreign investors are not registered directly with SEBI, but they are issued these notes, participatory notes by these FIIs. So FIIs are participatory notes, P notes issuers, and these foreign investors, hedge funds, are P notes contractors, holders. So this contract is finalized. The problem here is that if you try to regulate it to a much larger extent, if the regulation here is brought in, it may also make the P notes leave India. So that is huge amount of investment which would no longer come to India. But then regulation is also essential to ensure that from where funding is coming, if taxations are applicable. So all those aspects are also important. So here again, when these securities are sold off, there will be capital gains. So capital gains tax would be applicable. But then whether capital gains tax would apply, because P notes holders and issuers are known, holders are not known. So in that cases, how would taxes be applied, how GAR rules would be applicable to them? So that is why there are concerns here too with respect to P notes. So the thing is that if then example is also given here. So here you can see that this is the P note holder in another country. He has a contract with a FII registered with SEBI. So this is the P note issuer, but this FII is based in a tax haven. Consider. So if it is based in a tax haven, then capital gains tax transactions, earlier it was not applicable on it, but now with GAR coming into effect, then any capital gains made, taxes have to be paid. So here this transaction still would be outside the loop of GAR between the P note issuer and the holder, but here the taxation would have to be paid. So that is how GAR would apply to P notes as well. The next news item is 77,000 jobs created in July to September 2016. So the number of jobs created have seen a dip in the manufacturing sector, the construction, and even the IT sector. But other sectors, services sectors like trade, transport, accommodation, education, and health have seen an overall increase in employment. The highest increase has been in the education sector. This is the data which has been released by the Labour Bureau recently as part of its survey. So the previous survey report, which was released in March 2016, had shown 1.35 lakh jobs created in 2015. So this was the lowest in 7 years then. So the dip in the manufacturing jobs is clearly evident right now. The next news item is World Trade Organization pact set to lift world trade by $1 trillion in Trump era. So this is the trade facilitation agreement. So this trade facilitation agreement under the WTO, which has been finalized, will come into effect. So this is to take place soon in 2 weeks. So this will boost global exports by $1 trillion as per WTO. So what is this agreement all about? This is facilitating trade. So this is regarding standardization and simplification of the custom procedures. So this will reduce the time, cost and complexity of dealing with goods across the borders. So this is the trade facilitation agreement. So this will be much more beneficial for developing countries, because in developed countries they already have the custom procedures at high levels. So modifications will be made at the developing countries level. So this will facilitate trade for them. So this trade facilitation agreement has a history in which India had delayed the signing of this agreement. So this basically is to cut red tape. Red tapeism, which is seen in the customs. So for moving goods across international borders. So the tariffs are falling. So tariffs which are applicable means the duties which have to be paid on transaction of goods. So these duties imposed are falling. So that is, the tariff barrier is falling, but non-tariff barrier, which generally is seen, because facilities are not conducive for trade. So that is why this provision, trade facilitation agreement, becomes significant. So this is there. It says many small and medium-sized enterprises are not able to participate in international trade because of red tapeism. So they will be encouraged. So this, it says, it impairs export competitiveness of goods produced by developing countries. So there are goods in developing countries which are export competitive, but then they suffer because of the red tapeism in customs. So to ensure that this does not take place, the trade facilitation agreement has to be put into effect, which will benefit developing countries as well. So developed countries were pushing for this trade facilitation agreement, but India had its concern which was raised. So it was actually in December 2013 that it was finalized that trade facilitation agreement would be signed by all countries, WTO members, in July 2014. But then at that time, India said that this should be delayed to December 2014 so that a concern which it has in WTO is addressed. And this concern was with agreements on agriculture. So India was calling for a modification in agreements on agriculture, because their subsidy on agriculture that can be provided by the government is capped at 10%. But then in India, public stockholding, which is done for food security, so here the subsidy limit is going to breach that 10% target, 10% cap which is allowed in WTO. So that is why India had this concern that if this happens, then it will be breaching a WTO provision. So this has to be modified as well. So it was putting this as a condition that here also a solution be found out, and then trade facilitation agreement be put into effect. So that on this a temporary clause was added that till 2017 this breach in cap would be allowed, and after that in the meantime a permanent solution would also be sought. So this was an agreement which came forward between India and USA. So you can see the trade facilitation should happen along with other things agreed at the Bali Ministerial Conference. So this was public stockholding on for food security purposes, which was emphasized on. So it says that otherwise we'll have to cut food subsidy, which he did not want to undergo. So you can see the agreement on agriculture has a cap 10% on subsidies. So here you can see what happened. So this was the peace clause which was added, that immunity till 2017 against penalty for breaching the subsidy cap under the agreement on agriculture for developing countries. So this quantum of subsidy is based actually on 1986-88 prices. So based on those prices, 10% subsidy is provided for, allowed. So this was the peace clause which was finalized between India and USA. So then ratification took place of the trade facilitation agreement. So this trade facilitation is based on 4 principles. There should be transparency, simplification, harmonization, and standardization of procedures. The next news item is White House plans seeks to hit IS harder. So this is Islamic State. The White House is drafting a presidential directive that has been called for by the present under the administration of President Donald Trump. So he had said that he would bring in more assertive strikes on Islamic State. So Islamic State's capital in Syria, the ground capital is Raqqa in Syria. So here there would be much more ground attacks, army attack helicopters, which will be used to help in the assault on the IAS capital. So this will be finalized, approved by a presidential directive soon. So more aggressive strikes would take place. So Mr. Trump has repeatedly said that he has a secret plan to defeat the Islamic State. So we'll see what comes forward to. So this is Syria and Iraq. You can see Raqqa here is the capital of IS here. And these are the regions under IS control, and many regions have been freed of IS as well. The last news item is scientists take first step to grow human organs in pigs. So the first time the biologists have succeeded in growing human stem cells in pig embryos. So this is an initiative which has been taken for the first time. So this is actually science fiction, that human organs can be grown in an embryo. So embryo of a pig is injected with stem cells from a patient's body, and these stem cells then are channelized to be grown into the human organ. So this such organisms are called chimeras. So chimeras are animals composed of two different genomes. So they have their own genome set too, plus the human genome is also part of this, because the human stem cells have been implanted in the pig embryo. So it has mixed pig and human cells. So this has its own ethical concerns as well, because there may be a case that these human cells, means if their stem cells go towards the brain, then brain development would be like a human. So there are such fictional fictional ideas put forth that there can be a pig which can talk like a human because he has a brain like a human. So such things can also be possible. So if the reproductive system, if these stem cells are directed towards the reproductive system of the pigs, then pigs can give birth to humans or something like that. So these are the ethical concerns which are also there in place with respect to this research. But then this is the first time it has been shown that this is possible, and a team of biologists earlier at Salk Institute also, this is called, headed by Belmonte. So this Belmonte group has shown earlier that human stem cells can contribute to form the tissues of a pig. So human stem cells can be used here, that has been shown earlier. Also it has been shown that human stem cells survive in pig embryos and help form their organs. So this has been proved. Also another group at University of Tokyo, so this is called Nakauchi group. This has shown that diabetes in mice can be reversed by inserting pancreas glands composed of mouse cells that were grown in a rat. So such researches have taken place earlier and have shown that this is possible. And you can direct the cells, the stem cells, to be used for a particular purpose. So there are master genes. So if the master gene is disabled in a particular animal, so like here in this case it is the rat. So rat is inserted with pancreas glands from mice. So if pancreas glands from mice are being used, then the rat's own pancreas have to be disabled. So disabling of master genes in rats for making a pancreas is done so that the mouse stem cells, when they are injected in the early embryo of such rat, the growing embryo has no choice but to construct its pancreas out of pure mouse cells. So this is how the stem cell research takes place, and organs can be grown by disabling the master genes as desired. So these two reports have shown the feasibility of growing replacement human organs in animals. But this goal presently is far from achieving. It's only at a research stage, because there are many technical barriers, ethical barriers which have to be overcome. But the researchers are advancing in this direction, because transplant demands for human organs is quite high all across the globe. So this research can help in fulfilling this organ demand. So chimeras is a term which you should be clearly aware of, an organism which has two different genomes in it. So it says chimeras will be more immediately useful in studying human embryogenesis, testing drugs, and following the progress of diseases, rather than actually being used in organ generation as such. So these ethical concerns could also be addressed. That is also asserted by these scientists. There are new techniques also, like CRISPR-Cas gene editing system. So that there is gene editing which is required. So this should allow human cells in a pig embryo both to be channeled into organ of interest and to be excluded from tissues of concerns like the brain and reproductive tissues. So these gene editing systems are of significance to ensure that what is desired take place and nothing undesirable happens. So human stem cells, you can see here, are injected in the pig embryo, and then This genetically modified embryo is then put inside the pig and the human organ is developed here, which can be later be used for organ transplantation. So this is DNA editing, which is shown like CRISPR-Cas technique. So DNA editing, so this DNA can be cut and the required DNA can be added up here. You can see DNA strands how can be defective can be removed and healthy strand can be added. So these techniques are presently available through which these researches can actually show results as desired. So these are the news items for 28th Jan. Thank you.